You're listening to
Hello, Huddersfield.
the Voices of Huddersfield, inspiring the future vision.
Hello, and thank you for listening to Hello Huddersfield. Today for our podcast, we have with us Gerard Quinn, who will share with us his visions for Huddersfield Town Centre in the near future and beyond. To get involved with this or future podcasts, please feel free to email us at inquiries@huddersfieldbid.co.uk. Co-hosting the show with myself, Sophie, we have bid manager Matthew Chapman, who will join the discussion throughout. Hi Matthew, how are you today?
Hello, Sophie. I'm really good. I hope you're well as well.
I am, thank you. And hi, Jerry.
Hi, Sophie.
Thanks for being with us today. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. Yeah, a bit bored. Could do with the lockdown being over. I'm used to having a few nights out in the pub and meeting my mates and having some discussions and arguments. It's not the same having an argument with my wife. I've never won an argument yet, so it's not the same.
So tell us a little bit about what you do and your relationship to Huddersfield.
Well, I was born in Huddersfield in the late 50s. I think why I'm so passionate about the town centre is that I was actually born more or less in the town centre, where the new Huddersfield Sports Centre is. That's where I was born, and that's where I was raised until I was about 11. So like some people might be born in some of the villages in Huddersfield, like Linley or Meltham, and they're passionate about their little village. I consider Huddersfield Town Centre to be my little village. I used to step out from my house and more or less straight into the town centre. So I remember it in the 50s and 60s, and I'm still passionate and about it even now. And I think I've got very annoyed about all the criticism of Huddersfield Town Centre, and I realise that I don't think people realise that every town centre is struggling, but for some of our residents, they think it's only Huddersfield that's struggling.
It's really interesting, Jerry, that you mentioned that the late 50s, and I guess it'd be interesting for me to ask you in your time as a growing up in the 50s as a child, was it more industrial in the town centre then, or was it more residential? What was it like in the town centre growing up?
Well, it was a mixture. There was lots of houses, so people actually lived in town centres then. So where the ring road is now, houses were demolished to make way for the ring road. So thousands of people actually lived in the town centre, but also there was lots of industry in the town centre. So in the 50s and 60s, it was a very dirty old town. I remember hearing that Dirty Old Town song by Ewan McCall, and I always imagined it was Huddersfield, or it could have been Halifax or Bradford. In fact, it was Salford, I think he sang about. But northern towns were like that in those days. We had the smoke from the chimneys, we had the smoke from the mill chimneys and the engineering chimneys. We had smoke from the house chimneys, but also our main street in the town centre was actually the A62, the Huddersfield to Manchester road. So it was a constant traffic jam in that town centre, and it certainly wasn't a pleasant walk around the town centre in the late 50s, early 60s. It is these days because of the Clean Air Act and also because of our ring road as well.
I suppose for you to have that reflection to how it was then and how it was now, it must be quite pleasing, really, to a certain extent. And you mentioned, that not just Huddersfield, all town and city centres have got some challenges coming up and have had some challenges in the past. I'm sure Sophie will ask you some questions as we're moving on through the podcast. But I'm really interested to hear, because that there is calls. One of the things that some towns and city centres are promoting or looking to investigate a little bit further is to reintroduce residential dwellings into town and city centres. And it'd be just interesting for you, I guess, growing up and living in the town centre when you did, was there a sense of community in the town centre back then?
Absolutely, yeah. I lived in an area called Springwood. It's where the ventilation shafts are now. Have you seen the two chimneys up at Springwood?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Well, I was born there, and all the Springwood people, most of my friends, that we all had to move away because the houses got knocked down. But when we meet up now, we reminisce about that area, and we all had the same upbringing, and it was a very, very close community. About a couple of years ago, when I retired, I decided that I was going to do something about the town centre. I've had meetings with all the top councillors. I've had meetings with the police force, and I've just used my time to try and improve the town centre. I was fed up of people criticising the town centre on the social media sites without actually doing anything about it. They were just moaning to nobody really. So I decided to do something about it. And one of the first things I did was to start a campaign for the council to buy the George Hotel back. I started a petition for that, and we got about 5,000 signatures, and then we presented it to the council. And my first meeting with the council, we were told there were no way they were going to buy the George Hotel, and then within 6 months they'd actually bought it. So I was really pleased about that.
Yeah, and rightly so. And I guess thank you for that lobbying to get us to the stage where we're at with the
because I think the beauty of our town centre is the architecture. The architecture is absolutely amazing. Every time I go into the St George's Square, I can't believe the buildings that we have. And it's as good as anywhere in any European city. It's as good a square as anywhere.
Thank you, Gerard, for sharing all that with us. It's been quite interesting to hear from you. So could you tell us your favourite memory in your time in Huddersfield?
Well, I was thinking about it the other day, and I can remember when I was about 8 years old, I was picked for the school football team. I went to school in the town centre, and I was picked for the school football team. And of course, in those days, we all walked to school on our own. We didn't have anybody to pick us up. And I said to my dad, I've been picked for the school football team, but I've no football boots, Dad. He says, well, meet me after work at the old market in town. We had an old Victorian market, which was absolutely fantastic. And he said, meet me on the top level of the market. So I met him there after school, and he bought me my first pair of boots. And that was a really good memory. And I think when I go into town, I do have lots of memories of where I was with, when I went to town with my mum or my aunties or my grandmas. So every single place you go to in town, I've got happy memories. But that was a particular memory of meeting my dad it was a beautiful market we had. And unfortunately, I don't know, it was an absolutely ridiculous decision to demolish it in 1969. It was where Boots is now down King Street.
Is that on the site where the piazza now sits?
Yeah, well, it was actually directly on the site of Boots Chemists. It was that area there. The market was there.
Okay.
And again, nobody objected to it. There was no marches, no petitions. There was no real objection to it. Even the stallholders wanted a new market because access to it with modern transport was very poor. So again, that's one of the reasons I've got involved with things now, because looking back, if I'd have been this age when the old market was planned to be demolished, I would have done something about it. I would have chained myself to something to make sure that it didn't happen. But I was looking. I'd have been about 15 when it was demolished, and I don't remember anybody objecting to it at all. And it should, if it was here now, it would be absolutely brilliant.
It has been absolutely exciting to hear the history and how things changed throughout Huddersfield, and you've seen that and you've experienced that. So from your point of view, what do you think is or needs to be Huddersfield's unique selling point?
Well, I think the architecture's got to be. We've got to tidy all the derelict buildings up and look after our heritage buildings. We've got some tremendous Victorian architecture in our town centre. I think we've over 200 Grade 2 listed buildings, and of course, as far as I know, the railway station is a Grade 1 listed building. So we've got some of the most listed buildings in the whole of the country in a town centre. So all those properties have got to be looked after, and I think the council in recent years have not done that and simply allowed private people to look after our heritage. But I think things are changing now, and the council have realised that they've got to do something about it. We've got the old college site that we used to have a technical college, and it's actually on the site of our old infirmary. I remember the old infirmary before they built this one up at Linley. But the old infirmary building is still there, and it dates back from 1850, and that's just gone to rack and ruin, and that needs developing again. And it'd look absolutely superb on the ring road once it's revived.
I actually studied in that building.
Oh, good.
I did a fast course in there, and I do remember my first day. I went through the main entrance, and I didn't know about all these side entrances around the entire building, and
Yes.
I pretty much got lost. And it did look like you were entering a hospital through the main entrance.
Yes, it was
It
the
was
old
absolutely
hospital. Yeah,
fantastic inside.
I think we built the new hospital in about 1966, 1967. So I had a few visits to the old hospital with cut heads and stitches and all sorts of things like that. But it's a beautiful building.
Yeah, a brilliant insight there, Gerald. Thank you. And I think one of my favourite, well, two of my favourite buildings that you might know a little bit more about in Huddersfield is the first is the Estates building that you might have seen. I was lucky enough to go inside just before Christmas it was, and we had a little tour with Kirklees Council and the plans that they've potentially got for that building, and it's the entrance to that building there's a stone staircase and stained glass windows and a really grand entrance. You could be literally walking into a 5-star hotel anywhere in the world, even as it is now. So it's an incredible building, and the second one that always really inspires me for some reason, and Sophie's probably bored of hearing about this building, that you might know a little bit more about than us, is if you were walking up Westgate back towards, no, not Westgate, Byram Street, I think it is, towards, no, which one is it, Sophie? I'm lost here with my places. It's just after the Commercial Hotel.
Are you talking about the one behind the train station?
No, I'm talking about the one that is where you've got the crossroads of New Street and the street.
High Street.
High Street is the one.
Yeah. And
so the building on High Street, just after the Commercial Hotel on the right hand side. I think it might be. Did it used to be an auction house?
Yes, it was. I used to go there with my mum. My mum and dad had a couple of houses around town, and to get the furniture, they used to go to that auction house. It was actually an estate agent's, and most estate agents in the old days used to be auctioneers as well. And every week there'd be an auction, and I can remember really well going into that yard where there's a big gate now, and looking at all the old furniture there. Yeah, it's a beautiful building. That we've got some beautiful arcades in Huddersfield. We've got the Byram Arcade and the Imperial Arcade. There's an arcade called Market Avenue now, which was near the Marks and Spencers, our old Marks and Spencers, and that's owned by a firm from Liverpool. And there's only about 30% occupancy in this beautiful arcade. And if it was full of shops and the cafe opened again, it would be absolutely brilliant.
It's pretty clear that we're not here pretending everything's all sugar-coated and perfect. But what do you think the challenges are for the town centre moving forward?
Well, I think one of the biggest challenges is to change people's perceptions of our town centre. Still, people think it's not safe by day and by night. And for the last 2 years, I think it has been safe. I mean, we got a bad reputation for nighttime violence, and that was quite justified, I think. In the daytime, I've been going into Huddersfield for years and years and never seen any trouble. We've got some illegal street drinkers that people don't like. We've got very few homeless people and people sleeping rough, but every town's got that problem, and that's another thing completely. Where a lot of people think that town centre's rough, when I don't think it is. So to change perceptions, I know we've got some police officers now on the beat round the town. About 6 police officers. I was speaking to one of them last week. But do the people know that we've got those people touring around town? Is it out there? Is it in the papers that these people are there? For instance, I did a piece before Christmas. People used to say our town centre was untidy. So I did a piece on it before Christmas on a site, and we have seven street cleaners in the town centre working every day of the week, and I never see any rubbish in our town centre. It's really clean town centre, and especially since Huddersfield bid, cleaned all the pavements as well. I think it looks really good, but that's not out there with the people. It's people are still saying the same old things, that it's not safe and it's dirty, and it isn't. But it's very hard to get people to change their minds. So I don't know how we're going to do that, but perceptions about our town centre have got to change. And the safety one, especially by day and by nights, got to change somehow, because it's not a bad town at all. It's quite safe to be in our town centre. And also, when people do come into the town centre for any events or for shopping, they can see for themselves that it is safe, and it's a safe place to shop, and also it's a clean place as well. As I said at the beginning, when I was a kid, you'd be better off wearing a gas mask when you went to town. But now you can actually have a pleasant walk round. I mean, I go to town quite a lot, and many times I'll come away and I won't have bought anything, but I might have had 4 or 5 conversations with friends or relatives. And I think people forget that about town centres. It's where people meet up, especially local people. Some people say to me, "Why don't you go to Halifax or Barnsley or Leeds to do your shopping?" I said, I don't know anybody there. I don't go. I go to town centre for all sorts of reasons, and especially with this pandemic. If I didn't go to the Greenhead Park or the town centre, I don't think I'd have seen my sister for 12 months. That's where I bump into her, and you bump into old friends in town centre that you haven't seen for years, and that's why I like my town centre.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Gerard. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. We've now come to the end of Hello Huddersfield, and thank you, Gerry, for being with us today on the show. Now, listeners, if you have any questions or have something you would like to share, then get in touch at inquiries@huddersfieldbid.co.uk. Keep a lookout for our next podcast with another guest speaker.
You're listening to
Hello Huddersfield.
The Voices of Huddersfield, inspiring the future vision.